I have an uncle that lives way on the other side of the world in California. I rarely saw him growing up, but I was in my teens and he came and visited. He pulled me aside and asked me if I was serious about religion and spirituality. And when I said I was, he told me about a retreat that he just went on. It was led by a rabbi, a Catholic priest, and a Protestant minister. I don't remember all the details what he told me, but I remember him saying that his experience was beyond goose pimples. He was so excited about telling me this. I got goosebumps myself. And he told me if he could do it all over again, he would have become a Catholic priest. This got me thinking. Weeks later, I received a book from him in the mail on the biography of the Trappist monk, Thomas Merton. I ended up reading that book and much of Thomas Merton's work, and actually visited his grave at the Abbey of Gethsemane in Kentucky. So my uncle's tale of feeling the Spirit at a retreat and sending me a book made me aware of an intentional, felt spiritual life, which I was dimly aware of before then. In the book, The Spiritual Child, The New Science on Parenting for Health and Lifelong Thriving, psychologist Lisa Miller's research shows that youth that develop an authentic spiritual life are less likely to engage in risky behaviors like unprotected sex, reckless driving, abuse drugs, or get depressed. Now, I always knew there were benefits to the spiritual life. I knew that it made me a better person, it made me happier, but I did not know that you could quantify it in such a way. Our spiritual lives do matter, and how we nourish the next generation will and does matter. In some cases, it can be a matter of life and death. We nourish and cultivate our children and youth in many ways, and it's not just ministers and DREs that do it. It's parents, grandparents, godparents, aunts, uncles, mentors, really all of us take some responsibility for raising up our community's children and youth. But from our reading, it states, do not try to teach religion to your children. Aren't we supposed to be teaching religion here? The basement of this building is committed to doing just that. However, religion, if it's just a set of principles or rules, is not, I think, what we want to pass on to our children. Instead, we should be nourishing a natural spirituality, a quality of experience that is native to all of us. According to Miller, children at as early as the ages of 4 and 5 can have moments of transcendent experiences. Sometimes they are just subtle moments of insight and stillness that make you feel special, like you are on the right path. I tried to articulate one of these spiritual experiences to a friend when I was in my teens. He understood, and he told me he had had similar experiences. And as we talked about our experiences, we had a spiritual experience together. So the earth and all the natural process of life provide us with so much awe, reverence, and senses that fill us with worship. We do not need some spiritual realm outside of life. We evolved to be religious and spiritual naturally. And it is our longing for most of us to have some shape and form to our spiritual lives. It's located in the interior. It is pretty mysterious. It feels sometimes like going beyond the self. And all of us have access to it. So our religious community should really be in the business of making the spiritual come to the forefront of our lives. And if we want to teach this sort of natural spirituality, we need to start with experience. So if I want to teach my son to play basketball, if I want him to play basketball, am I going to start out telling him that a basketball hoop is 10 feet high? What do you think? No. Should I start telling him that a court is 94 feet long and 50 feet wide? Nah. Should I explain the history of basketball? Nah. Should I explain what double dribble is? Nah. Should I explain what a foul is? Nah. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out a basketball and I'm going to shoot some hoops with my son. That's what I'm going to do. Maybe I'd show him a video of Giannis Antetokounmpo dunking on someone. He's my favorite basketball player, Milwaukee Bucks. They just won last night. Maybe I'm going to play a little one-on-one with my son. But what I'm going to do is offer him basketballs of experience. If he likes it, maybe I'll show him some moves. I also need to play basketball myself. I need to go out and shoot a little bit. Maybe, so my point is, my point is, I can speak about life, but it is never life itself. I can speak about spirituality, but it is never quite spirit. So in teaching a natural spirituality, we guide them into moments of marvel in all the different manifestations of life. Encouraging a natural spirituality that is felt in our hearts is exactly what we do in our RE program. And this is the good news of our faith. We do not make our children dependent on others' words, but instead dependent on their own inner experience. But RE programs can't be the only way, because parents and the main caregivers are the primary models of spirituality. In the first decade of life, parents and main caregivers are the child's universe. As a child's sense of spirituality might actually be bound up with parents. So according to German philosopher Ludwig Feuerbach, I love saying that, God is simply a projection of our desires and wants. The psychologist Sigmund Freud added to that God was simply a projection of our father figure. But a theologian by the name of Paul Tillich gave a more nuanced pro-spiritual stance to this projection metaphor. He said, projection always is projection onto something, a wall, a screen, another being, another realm. The realm against which divine images are projected is not itself a projection. So, in other words, Freud is right on some level. Our sense of the divine might be wrapped up with our parents, but divine images are projected onto natural experiences of depth, reflection, wisdom, and authentic human spirituality. There is often a connection between our parents and the divine. And if we are loved unconditionally by our parents, we are more likely to think of God as love. If we saw our parents as very peaceful, we might see the ultimate as peace. Of course, if we saw our fathers as angry, we may see the divine as angry and disapproving as well. Fortunately, those of us who have had or have parents that, for whatever reason, could not love us unconditionally, we are often drawn to a loving grandparent, a youth minister, a teacher, a mentor. While other youth who did not experience the parental field of love might skip the projection step altogether and directly relate to the wall or screen of spiritual experience. Sometimes life has a way of healing itself. Parents and main caregivers are God-like creatures to small children sometimes, but there's a positive side to that. There's an ability here to set a table for a feast of spiritual experiences. First and foremost comes the simple act of loving the child unconditionally. In fact, it is in loving children in a non-possessive way that turns out to be the best way to instill spirituality. In so much of our culture, though, family has turned into a breeding ground for skills and grades and competition and shuttling kids to extra lessons and to lacrosse tournaments. We are pushing our kids to do more and more and more and more, but I think our spirits are saying, do less, do less. Instead of more activities, we should be building what Lisa Miller calls this field of love. So from the earliest ages, it is the parents and the main caregivers that create this field of love. Family is sacred in and of itself, and as children grow and mature, the field of love expands and grows to extended family. And as this field of love keeps expanding and expanding, developmentally, they need a larger extension, and this is where faith community comes in. Faith community plays an important developmental part in a children's spirituality. Being part of a faith community says that the universe is a place full of love, full of compassion. See these trusted other people? There are other people that are pursuing the spiritual life with our same values. Together, we are laying the groundwork for spiritual lives by participating with them in practices, bringing them to church, going into nature, noticing beauty together. We are normalizing the experience of being grasped by spirit. Now, over the past 15 months or so, RE has been kind of, because of the pandemic, a little bit different than normal. And I'm very proud of our RE committee and our RE staff, the effort they put forth and the creativity in the moment. My family got sent a monthly bag with RE home activities. This really challenged me as a parent and got me to realize the importance of my own role in my children's spirituality. So as mentors, as ministers, as models, our children need to find in us a sincere celebration of who we are. Then they will return eventually to their own natural joy and natural spirituality. They learn the art of happiness and contentment and peace from us. If we want them to play basketball, we must play basketball ourselves. If we want our children to be happy, we must be happy ourselves. If we want our children to be content, we must be content ourselves. And if we want our children to be peaceful, we must be peaceful ourselves. And if we want them to be spiritual, which has tremendous health and well-being benefits, then we must also be spiritual ourselves. We spiritually nurture our children by keeping ourselves nourished. Our spiritual journeys must continue. And when appropriate, we must tell our personal stories of spirit like my uncle did to me. So take the inner quest. Console with your higher self. Be connected to the universe. Perform acts of service. Form deep connections with each other. Develop a spiritual practice that makes your life whole. Ponder the big questions of life. These simple but difficult things, I think, are the roads that lead to happiness and to a fulfilled lives for ourselves and for our children. Amen, and blessed be.